Unit 9 Post-World War II era 1945 to 1980. The post-World War II era was filled of exciting change. Television became the main form of entertainment. Rock and roll swept the nation. African American and women fought for equal rights. Also significant, America entered the Korean and Vietnam War. The Cold War began, and everyone was afraid of communism and nukes. Chapter 38 America after the war. The world after the war. The only major world power to have had minimal fighting on the home front, the US, came out of the war better off than its allies and enemies in almost every way. The only fighting that took place in US soil was the attack on Pearl Harbor. The economy had been helped by the war and continued to grow. Alta and Potsdam. When it was clear that the Allies would win, the Allied leaders discussed ways to prevent another world war. The February 1945, the Big Three, Churchill, FDR, and Stalin, met at the Alta Conference and decided they needed a better peacekeeping group than the League of Nations to prevent war. Even Stalin agreed that nations should have the right to autonomy and democracy, though he later forced nations into communism, so there was that. Churchill, the big three, Churchill, FDR, Stalin. Stalin also agreed to fight against Japan after Germany was defeated. The leaders decided to divide Germany into four parts. The city of Berlin would also be divided by four. The US, the UK, the France, and the Soviet Union would each control the section. Germany divide. Russian zone, Berlin, American zone, French zone, British zone. In July, President Truman also met in Churchill, Clement Attlee, also from Great Britain, and Stalin at the Potsdam Conference. There they focused on the persecution of Japan and confirmed Soviet involvement in the War of the Pacific. The United Nations. The United Nations and UN formed in June 26, 1945, and 50 countries signed its charter in San Francisco. The UN's goal is to preserve world peace through diplomacy. One of the UN's first tasks was to create Arab and Jewish states from a British-controlled area in the Middle East called Palestine. After the Holocaust, many Jews sought a homeland to call their own. In 1948, by UN mandate command, the State of Israel was officially formed. The region that was formerly called Palestine has a mainly Muslim Arab population that was not happy with a new Jewish state taking control. Neighboring Arab countries attacked newly formed Israel in 1948, but Israel fought back hard. Thousands of Palestinian Arabs fled the area and sought refuge in the West Bank at the Gaza Strip to Arab-controlled land. Arab forces attacked again in 1967, and this time Israel gained control of the West Bank, the Gaza Strip, and the part of Syria and Egypt. The conflict between Palestine and Israel continues to this day. The Nuremberg trials. In November 1945, in Nuremberg, Germany, the Nuremberg trial began, trying Nazis for crime against humanity and their crime. In the first round of trial, 19 Nazis were found guilty and 12 were sentenced to death. Over 100 more than found guilty passed before the process ended. The similar tribunal, the International Military Tribunal for the Far East Tribunal, a court, was held in Tokyo where General Hideki Dojo and 6 other Japanese leaders were convinced and executed. The Iron Curtain. Even though the US and the Soviet Union fought the same side during the World War II, their political differences were clear. Without a common enemy, they became enemies of each other. Although Stalin had promised free democratic election in the Eastern European nation, he set up communist satellite government. They are under his control. Satellite describes something that is subordinate to another authority. Which side saw the other was trying to take over the world. The tension between communist USSR and Eastern Europe and capitalist US and Western Europe government became known as the Cold War, which considered the threat and intermutation frightening as opposed to hard war with actual fighting. In a speech in 1946, Winston Churchill stated that an iron curtain had descended on Eastern Europe, separating it from the rest of the world. The Truman Doctrine. President Truman decided the U.S. would fight the Cold War through containment, suppress, restraint. Truman convinced Congress to allocate money to help defeat communist rebels in Greece and Turkey to prevent the spread of communism to more countries. Holding back communism through containment and giving assistance to groups committed to fighting communism was the Truman Doctrine. The Marshall Plan. In June of 1947, Secretary of State George Marshall came up with his Marshall Plan to rebuild Europe. The U.S. hoped to contain communism, boost European economies, and countries' U.S. trade with Europe. The U.S. gave about $13 billion to aid to Western Europe nations between 1948 and 1951. Economic aid was supposed to protect countries that were unstable and poor and prevent radicals from taking over. The U.S. also provided economic assistance to ASEAN countries, including Japan, which continued to occupy. The Berlin airlift. US, the UK, the France announced that they would combine the share of Germany and Berlin into a single democratic nation. Truman believed that a unified Germany was the key to Europe's recovery. Stalin saw this as a threat, not only the Soviet-controlled part of the Germany, but also to Europe in general if the Germans regained power. Stalin began the Berlin blockade, the strategy to cut off the city's access to the West. Truman organized the Berlin airlift. US and Berlin plane brought food and supplies to Western Berlin until Stalin ended the blockade. Still, Berlin remained divided into East and West Berlin. Blockade. The blocking of something can also be used as a verb. Berlin divided. Spree River, West Berlin, East Berlin, Soviet, American, British, French. Berlin. By the end of 1949, Germany was also divided into two nations, the Federal Republic of Germany, Democrat West Germany, and the German Democratic Republic, Communist East Germany. East Germany, West Germany, Berlin, Poland, Czechoslovakia, Austria, France, Belgium, Luxembourg, Frankfurt, Bonn, Hamburg, Netherlands. East Germany, West Germany, Berlin. NATO and the Warsaw Pact. In 1949, the US and Canada joined with Western Europe to form an alliance, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO. North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO. First peacetime military alliance. It was a defensive alliance meant to prevent a Soviet assault on Western Europe. In 1955, the Communists established their own alliance, the Warsaw Pact. In spite of NATO, the US decided it shouldn't rely on other countries to protect the world against communism. America would lead the world. The Fair Deal. Truman began preparing a slate of domestic reform in 1945. This extension of the New Deal was called the Fair Deal and promised a higher minimum wage, better social security, job creation, better public housing, national health insurance. What's the deal? Remember, the Square Deal was a Teddy Roosevelt domestic program that focused on conservation, control of corporation, and consumer protection. The New Deal was a series of economic programs enacted by FDR during the first term of office. The Fair Deal was the series of domestic reform proposed by Harry Truman. Truman established committees of civil rights in 1946 when his Fair Deal bill didn't pass in Congress. Truman took other steps. For example, he issued an executive order that desegregated the army. The election of 1948. The Republican Party was sure they'd win. Truman hadn't succeeded with the Fair Deal, and the Democratic Party was divided. Some Southern Democrats, angry about Truman's support of civil rights, formed a new party called the States' Right Democratic Party and the Dixiecrat. Other Democrats formed a new progressive party to try to reconcile with the Soviet. The Republican candidate, Thomas Dewey, was so far ahead in the poll that the Chicago Daily Tribune newspaper released a special edition with a huge Dewey defeated Truman on the first page, on the front page, before the vote were tallied. But Truman had gone on a whistle-stop tour, a campaigning trip from town to town, referring to the train station where candidates would make a quick stop before continuing on. Whistle-stop tour, convincing Americans that the failure of the Fair Deal was the fault of Republican Congress. Truman won a second term.